be joined by resident member of the Bills Mafia, NFL Network Analyst, and you can follow him at Real Mike Rob. It is Michael Robinson joining us, who was tweeting quite a bit last night. And I'll get to my favorite tweet of yours in just a minute. But how are we doing, Mike?
Doing excellent, man. I can get used to these Victory Mondays, man. Yes, I can.
So among the tweets that you had, you addressed the young safeties that were in the game at the end. Poyer gets hurt, and after the game, he said he felt a pop in his elbow, same elbow he hurt in training camp. So there's some concern about his future availability. So is Jaquan Johnson and Damar Hamlin the rest of the way, and maybe for the immediate future? And you tweeted, "Come on, young safety, keep your eyes on your luggage." What are you getting at when you say that?
Well, again, and I was going to talk about this today anyway, though, guys. But first of all, those guys are playing well. Okay, they're playing well, but they did give up some plays on the back end just because of all the motions and shifts that the Green Bay offense does for you with that run game, with those vertical routes. It does put the safeties in a compromising situation, so they have to have their eyes in the right places. And I thought on one of those touchdowns one of those long plays, I think it was to Romeo Doubs, that one of our safeties, Hamlin, he didn't have his eyes on the right place. And if his eyes would have been in the right place, I think he would have made the play. But these are the only thing that concerned me about last night's win is the run game, right? And people have to understand that when you're playing like a team that you're playing modern offenses in the National Football League, a lot of times you're playing with the two safeties high, and you're letting those safeties identify when it's run and trigger to come down in the box and be that extra guy when there's a run play. And with all the motions and shifts, again, it's tough, right? With the play action, with the innovations that these offenses have. But I'm glad that our young safeties are getting these reps now instead of later on in the season when, again, those reps are going to mean a little bit more.
Did it mean anything to you? Because I thought really the Pack, we were surprised, and we're talking about it, that they just continued to run the ball deep into the second half when they were down 17 and really kind of stole their own opportunity to get enough possessions to get back in the game. And I thought the game was effectively over when the Bills stopped them on downs on the 4th and short when they had a chance to do it. And that was basically the end of the game because the time was just not going to be there for them to score 3 times. What did you think about that strategy? Did you question it or did you agree with it?
Well, I will say I agree with it because, again, the Green Bay Packers team in general, they're struggling. Right? They don't have enough playmakers on the outside. The offensive line is broken. They can't block 5 rushers one-on-one at any time. And so Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't trust the guys on the outside. He doesn't trust the protection. And so when you look at it, the only way to move the ball was to run the football, especially knowing that Leslie Frazier was going to keep 2 safeties high. The young safety was in there to help the passing because they were down. So the explosive plays had to come from the run game. But again, the Green Bay Packers, they have to play a certain game if they want to be able to win, and especially going up against this high-powered offense with the Buffalo Bills. Again, the run game or the run defense does concern me when you get in those types of games. But if we're scoring points offensively, usually you'll talk teams out of running the football.
Did you realize or think about it that even with the run game going the way it was for the Green Bay Packers, I mean, they were making some hay. Leslie Frazier refused to go 3 linebackers and stayed in nickel. I mean, you can't get them out of that defense.
Now, look, my man, Taron Johnson, he's a dog now, okay? He get in there in between the tackles. He's making tackles, in the backfield, behind the line of scrimmage, along with covering, along with adjusting the motions and things like that. So I get it. But at the end of the day, just like you just said before, the strategy of running the football, you're only going to get with so many explosive plays, and it's kind of like it's a slow-moving type of a process. It's not like Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson where you can get an explosive almost any time you're running the football. So I agree with both coordinators. I agree with what Green Bay did because that's how they can get their explosive plays, but I also agree with Leslie Frazier. He was defending against the pass, yet with the mindset of defending the run as well.
Speaking of the run game, let's flip it around to the Bills' run game because Week 6 against Kansas City, we saw them being asked to run by the Chiefs' defense, and they did it, getting good chunk plays from Singletary. They had 100 yards on the board at halftime against the Chiefs in a 10-10 game. Last night, they go 3 and out on the first possession. They come back, they run the ball 5 times in a row.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
Josh scrambles, they run it again, and then Josh tosses a little flare to Dawson Knox touchdown. They averaged 8.2 in the first half, Mike. Like, you could call week 6 a one-off, but I don't know if you can now. Is this run game kind of getting some steam? I'm not saying they're going to be a balanced offense. I'm not saying that. But we've said all season, we've talked to you about this almost on a weekly basis, that it's got to be at least effective enough as something to turn to when you need it. Are we seeing progress on that front?
Yes. Yes. Ken Dorsey, man. Hey, man, love you, bro. I know you watched the show. I love you, bro. We were in college at the same time. We played against each other. It's all good. You beat us when I went to Penn State. You know what I mean? But it's all good. I thought Ken Dorsey was in his bag last night. Oh, look, first of all, Devin Singletary, he is the glue to this offense to me. He is. The times in the games where he makes his plays, whether it's in the run game or check down in the passing game. I mean, I don't know if there's any bigger catches or any bigger runs of any offense other than a Devin Singletary. So to me, he is the glue. And people have to understand, teams are going to defend Josh Allen in this passing game first. So they're going to play with two safeties high. They're going to have 5 or 6 men in the box, and they're going to dare the Buffalo Bills to continue to run the football. And I want all the Bills Mafia. I want Bills Mafia to think about this. When number 68, Bobby Hart, comes in the game, we got to get a chant going for that dude, right? Especially when we playing those 3-4 teams and things like that. They single him on those outside linebackers, right? And which allows for more double teams in the run game. So our Devin Singletary and guys and James Cook and those guys can go and do work. I love what Ken Dorsey and the running game that Ken Dorsey called last night. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and I thought you're right. They went to a heavy O-line a couple of times, and it really seemed to open up that run game. Bobby Hart coming in, going ineligible receiver or eligible receiver.
Yeah, he was like a second tight end.
Yeah.
12 personnel, yeah.
So that
Absolutely.
and that seems to be something that, they did. No question they had a plan for it. It was planned going in, and it really seemed to work to perfection.
Yes, it did work to perfection. And again, especially when you're dealing with those thick outside backers, those guys that, can become a problem for a smaller tight end or a tight end that just doesn't have the girth of some of those big guys. It reminds me of how we won our Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks after the 2013 season. We literally, when we played that Denver Broncos team, we had a heavy offensive line. We brought in an extra offensive lineman. We put him as a wing, and we just ran double teams right down their throat. I think Ken Dorsey picked the right time and the right game to put it on tape because, again, we got some big games coming up, especially the Jets coming up, where those double teams and those heavy personnels, you want to talk that two safety high look. You want to talk that safety back into the box so you can be explosive in the passing game.
Mike, were you surprised that Jair Alexander did not follow Steph Diggs last night? He had each of the last 2 games. He did it against the Jets, against Garrett Wilson, did it against Washington, against Terry McLaurin. Prior to that, he had pretty much stayed on his side at right corner in the first 5 games of the Packers, but there was a trend building there. Were you surprised he wasn't asked to follow Stephon the whole game?
No, I was not surprised because, again, Stephon gets a lot of targets. He gets a lot of passes. He gets a lot of yards, a lot of those things. But he's not always the guy featured in the route concept. Sometimes he's just a guy that's just running a flat, and he's an outlet for Josh Allen, and Josh Allen throws it to him, but he has so much wiggle and so much twitch that he gets 10 or 12 yards. That's what makes Stephon Diggs really so special, right? But when you have a Gabe Davis, when you have some of the other receivers and Dawson Knox and the tight end with Devin Singletary with the underneath, sometimes you got to be able to play zone. Sometimes you got to be able to use that chess piece, that defensive back, and put him in other areas. You see, he got some interceptions, he got some things like that. But at the end of the day, the more thing I was surprised at is the fact that with that weak, unnecessary roughness call that they called on Gabe Davis, that was so weak. They would not have called that 5 years ago, but they called it now. You see what I'm saying? I was surprised Jair Alexander didn't fight back.
Yeah, it's interesting too because the game did seem a little chippy, and it's not been something the Bills do too much of. And these two teams don't see each other often enough to have like some sort of, feud going. It struck me, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for the Packers. But it struck me that Packers seemed like they were really a frustrated team watching their season go down the tubes after winning 13 games for 3 straight years. they're not very good this year. And I think their frustration kind of boils over a little bit in that chippiness last night.
Yeah, I think it was, and we can't forget Steph Diggs used to play up in the NFC North, so he has some games against some of those guys, so I can see the chippiness with the wide receivers and defensive backs. But I think when you saw Aaron Rodgers at the podium at the end of the game, when you just watch the body language of this team, first of all, I'd say be careful what you ask for, Aaron Rodgers. Last week you said this was probably the game for you. No, it wasn't. This was the game that proved to you that the national media was right, that you shouldn't have let Devontae Adams walk up out of the door, that you had a good thing going. You just won 26 games or whatever over the last couple of seasons with 2 MVP showings. And now you let all the drama of the offseason happen. You go have an awakening with your Ayakasa and all those things, and you come back to this. I mean, Devontae Adams left because Aaron Rodgers was skeptical about his future. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I think, I think you're absolutely right. It was a realization of the Green Bay Packers that, we aren't that good. And if we want to fight to be relevant in this year's playoffs, we better do something before tomorrow's trade deadline.
All right, quickly, Mike, before we let you go, Bills, Jets, just your early thoughts here. Jets are a top 10 defense now. Their defensive front is pretty dang good. But the engine of their offense is gone now with Breece Hall out for the season. Zach Wilson is struggling. There's calls for putting Joe Flacco or Mike White in instead. Just your early inklings about this one.
They're going to run the football. If I know Robert Saleh like I know Robert Saleh, he was with me in Seattle. And then, obviously I got all my connections with the San Francisco 49ers. He was the defensive coordinator there. If I know Robert Saleh, they're going to run the football and they're going to force the Buffalo Bills to have all the assets in the box and then let the quarterback throw the ball if and only if it's one-on-one on the outside. And then offensively for us, the Buffalo Bills, get the ball out of your hands. They're going to try to figure out a way to get some pressure on Josh Allen. Again, it's okay to throw the football away. It's okay at times to take a sack and punt. Just do not turn the football over, and I think we'll be fine.
All right, Mike. Appreciate it as always. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Mike.
You be good, guys, always.